For years, Gene Hackman fiercely guarded his privacy, shielding his family from the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. But now, with his passing, his 3 children have finally broken their silence, stepping forward to reveal a truth so shocking that it has left the world in disbelief. Their accounts do not just portray a vastly different Gene Hackman from the legendary actor the world admired, they also expose the woman who stood by his side for over 3 decades, Betsy Arakawa.To. The public, Betsy was the devoted wife, the woman who cared for Hackman in his final years. But was that the full story? The revelations from Hackman's children have left everyone stunned. No one could have predicted the truth about Betsy, a truth that completely shatters the carefully constructed image the world has known. So, who was Betsy Arakawa, really? Was her marriage to Hackman as perfect as it seemed, or was something hidden beneath the surface? What secrets have been buried for all these years? And why did Hackman's children choose now, of all times, to finally expose the truth? The truth has been buried for far too long. But this time, nothing can stop it from coming to light. Are you ready to uncover the untold story? 1. 3 children unexpectedly revealed the truth about Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman was one of the greatest actors in American cinema. He was known for his versatility, playing both sharp-witted villains and deeply complex protagonists. His career spanned decades, leaving an unforgettable legacy with films such as The French Connection, which earned him an Oscar, Unforgiven, one of the greatest westerns of all time, and The Royal Tenenbaums, a film celebrated for its artistic brilliance. Despite his immense success, Gene Hackman was unlike many Hollywood stars. He disliked grand interviews, avoided red carpet events, and even at the peak of his career, he maintained a deliberate distance from the media and the public, leaving many curious about his private life. Throughout his years in the entertainment industry, Hackman never allowed his family to be drawn into the media frenzy. He fiercely protected his loved ones from the intrusive gaze of the press. His children, Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie, were almost never seen in public. Unlike many celebrity families, where the children of stars are often swept into the glamorous world of Hollywood, Hackman's 3 children chose a quiet life, far from the spotlight. This secrecy made Gene Hackman's personal life a mystery to his fans. When he and Betsy Arakawa passed away, many began to wonder, who was Gene Hackman beyond the silver screen? What was his family life really like? And, most importantly, what had his children experienced over the years? Hackman had 3 children with his first wife, Faye Maltese, Christopher, 65, Elizabeth, 63, and Leslie, 58. However, over the years, his relationship with his children, particularly his daughters, was not always smooth. During his younger years, Hackman dedicated most of his time to his acting career, constantly traveling for film projects, often leaving behind a family that lacked a father figure. He once admitted that his passion for cinema created an invisible distance between him and his children. In a rare interview, he confessed that he had lost touch with his son at an early age and expressed regret for not always being there for his children during the most important moments of their lives. This led many to wonder, if Hackman was distant from his son, did his daughters experience the same fate? Elizabeth and Leslie grew up with a famous father, but instead of receiving his full attention, they often seemed forgotten. Throughout their childhood and adulthood, they rarely appeared at public events with their father, nor were they often mentioned in interviews. This made it clear that their relationship was not particularly close. Still, Hackman remained an enigma to the public, as he rarely spoke about his private life. This left the depth of his connection with his children an unanswered question. In his final years, Hackman withdrew completely from Hollywood, choosing a secluded life with his second wife, Betsy Arakawa. He rarely appeared in public, spending his retirement at his luxurious estate in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Yet, strangely, there was no indication that his daughters were involved in caring for him or spending much time with him. Even as he entered his 90s and his health declined, Hackman seemingly did not receive much attention from Elizabeth and Leslie. This sparked speculation: why were his daughters absent as he grew older? Where were they in his final years? And did they only begin expressing regret after he was gone? This estrangement was not only evident in their actions but also in their own words. After Hackman's passing, Leslie admitted that she had not spoken to her father for months, yet she insisted, "We were very close." This statement immediately caused confusion among the public. According to several sources, despite not being public figures, Hackman's 3 children did have a connection with their parents. Leslie, the youngest daughter, was the most private of the 3, avoiding the media completely. However, after losing both of her parents, she could no longer remain silent. When she appeared for a rare interview in Los Angeles, her emotions were evident. Her eyes held a mix of strength and sorrow. She could not hide her grief as she spoke about memories of her parents. Elizabeth, the second daughter, also chose a quiet life, away from Hollywood. She had never been in the public eye, nor had she been featured in any articles or media events. But this time, she could not stay silent. Alongside Leslie, she issued a heartfelt statement. "With deep sorrow, we announce the passing of our beloved parents, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. Our father was admired and loved by millions around the world for his legendary acting career. But to us, he was simply the most wonderful father and grandfather. We will forever cherish his memory and mourn this great loss." Christopher, the eldest son, shared a unique bond with Hackman. As his only son and a strong-willed individual, Christopher did not follow in his father's artistic footsteps, instead choosing a modest life. However, he always maintained a connection with his father and family. In a 1984 interview, Hackman revealed, "We still hug each other every day, and I thank God for that." This suggested that, despite not displaying affection publicly, they had a genuine relationship. Following his parents' passing, Christopher remained quiet in the media, but he continued to protect his family from false rumors. He understood that his father's legacy was not just about films, but also about the values he passed down to his family. 2. The relationship between Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. Gene Hackman's life was marked by many ups and downs, not only in his career but also in his personal journey. Before meeting Betsy Arakawa, he was married to his first wife, Faye Maltese, for over 3 decades. Although their marriage lasted for a long time, it was not without turmoil. As Hackman became increasingly consumed by the whirlwind of fame and work, the growing distance between him and his family became undeniable. The constant demand of blockbuster films pulled him away from home, causing his relationship with Faye to gradually fade. After their divorce, Hackman almost lost faith in love. He had entered middle age with a solid career but lacked a true emotional anchor in his personal life. It was during this phase that Betsy Arakawa entered his world, bringing a renewed sense of hope and companionship. Betsy, a classical pianist born in Hawaii, possessed a calm demeanor and a gentle personality. She did not come from the Hollywood entertainment industry and was never drawn to the glitz and glamour of fame. This, more than anything else, was what intrigued Hackman the most. He once confided in a close friend that Betsy brought balance into his life, helping him escape from the chaotic demands of the film industry and instead focus on the true essence of living. Their encounter was purely coincidental, but from the very first moment, Hackman felt an extraordinary connection. In their initial conversations, the two discovered that they shared more similarities than differences, despite their age gap. Hackman was captivated by Betsy's refined and introspective nature, while Betsy saw in Hackman a seasoned yet compassionate man. Unlike the fleeting romances often seen in Hollywood, Hackman and Betsy's relationship developed slowly but steadily. They took their time to understand one another, resisting the urge to rush into a glamorous public relationship. This was what made their love exceptional, a bond built on understanding, mutual respect, and genuine companionship. When they officially married in 1991, Hackman had already reached a phase in his career that many considered his post-peak years. He had achieved everything an actor could ever dream of, yet he understood that some things were more important than fame, like inner peace and a real home. With Faye Maltese, Hackman had been a devoted husband but was often overpowered by his career commitments. The long shoots, extended travels, and relentless industry demands had taken him away from his family. As his first marriage ended, Hackman realized that he had missed out on too many invaluable moments. With Betsy, he was determined not to repeat the same mistakes. Immediately after marrying Betsy, Hackman made conscious efforts to shift his lifestyle. He started cutting back on work, became more selective with the projects he took on, and devoted more of his time to his wife. Betsy was not just his life partner, she was his confidant, the person he could trust with his deepest thoughts and fears. For years, Hackman and Betsy chose a quiet, low-profile life, steering clear of extravagant entertainment events. They were often seen at classical music concerts, private vacations, or simply enjoying a peaceful life together. Their marriage was free of scandals or public controversies, it was built on genuine connection and unwavering support. In 2004, Hackman made the most significant decision of his life: he retired from acting. It was not an easy choice, given that acting had been his entire existence for decades. But ultimately, he realized that it was time to prioritize his family over Hollywood. With Betsy by his side, Hackman experienced a life he had never truly known before, a life free from the pressures of Hollywood, free from month-long shoots, and free from the industry's never-ending demands. He could wake up without worrying about a hectic schedule, take walks with his wife, read books, or simply enjoy a quiet afternoon on their porch. As Hackman aged, he faced declining health, struggling with heart disease, memory loss, and the inevitable signs of aging. But throughout these difficult years, Betsy remained by his side, caring for him in every way possible. Leslie, Hackman's youngest daughter, once tearfully acknowledged, "If it weren't for Betsy, my father wouldn't have lived his final years so peacefully." She took care of him in every way, from his meals to his emotional well-being. Unlike many Hollywood spouses, Betsy never sought fame through Hackman's success. She never used his name for publicity, never gave grand interviews, and never portrayed herself as the wife of a legend. Instead, she chose to stay behind the scenes, quietly being his anchor. During Hackman's final days, Betsy was the only person who truly understood what he needed. As his health continued to decline, she never left his side, ensuring that he received the best care and comfort possible. Betsy was more than just a wife, she was an irreplaceable part of Hackman's life, the person who helped him rediscover himself after years of living under Hollywood's relentless spotlight. And when Betsy passed away, the void she left in Hackman's life was one that could never be filled. 3. The terrifying truth behind the death of Gene Hackman and his wife. Although Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa built a peaceful life together after stepping away from Hollywood, no one can escape the harsh passage of time. In her final years, Betsy began showing signs of deteriorating health, but no one could have predicted how suddenly she would pass away. The cause of Betsy's death was identified as hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a rare but highly fatal disease. This deadly virus attacks the respiratory system, causing acute respiratory failure and can take a person's life in a shockingly short amount of time. The most terrifying aspect of this illness is how rapidly it progresses, and in Betsy's case, she had only mild symptoms for a few days before her condition worsened dramatically. Betsy's loved ones, including Gene Hackman's 3 children, were completely unprepared for this devastating loss. Just a week before her death, Betsy had been healthy and active, taking care of Hackman as she always did. No one could have imagined that in just a few days, the strong and devoted woman who had been by Hackman's side for decades would be gone forever. Leslie Hackman, Gene's youngest daughter, recalled the moment she received the call from the hospital. "I couldn't believe my ears. When they told me my stepmother had passed away, I thought it was a mistake. We had just spoken to her 2 days ago, everything seemed fine. We never got the chance to say goodbye." Betsy's sudden passing was not only a tremendous loss for the Hackman family but also a crushing emotional blow for Gene himself. At his advanced age, he no longer had the strength to endure such an overwhelming tragedy. Looking back at the days leading up to Betsy's death, everything seemed normal. The last time she was seen in public was on February 11th, when she went shopping at a local store. There were no signs that she felt unwell, nor were there any reports of her seeking medical attention. However, the danger of hantavirus lies in its delayed onset. Its initial symptoms mimic the flu, leading many to mistake it for a mild cold. If Betsy had unknowingly contracted the virus earlier, her condition may have worsened rapidly once she returned home, with no one realizing the severity until it was too late. Another possibility is that Betsy unknowingly came into contact with the virus in her final days. If she had been cleaning a storage room, handling old blankets, or interacting with any contaminated areas, an infection would have been entirely possible. When the first symptoms appeared, Hackman, who was suffering from Alzheimer's, may not have recognized how serious it was. For someone struggling with cognitive decline, monitoring a loved one's health can be extremely challenging. If Betsy's condition deteriorated over several days, Hackman may not have been able to distinguish between a mild illness and a deadly virus. As the disease progressed to its fatal stage, hantavirus fills the lungs with fluid, causing sudden respiratory failure. If Betsy had collapsed at home due to this condition, she could have lost consciousness and died within hours. If Hackman had been present in those final moments, it is possible that he didn't understand what was happening. Alzheimer's causes confusion in unexpected situations, and in this case, Hackman may not have realized that his wife had passed away. This could explain why he never called for help, because, in his mind, she was simply sleeping. After February 13th, a chilling silence fell over Hackman's home, so absolute that no one in the Santa Fe neighborhood even noticed something was wrong. To the neighbors, the couple's absence was not alarming. Hackman and Betsy were known for their private lifestyle, rarely interacting with outsiders. No missing persons reports were filed, no one questioned their disappearance. But this eerie silence was the first sign of a tragedy that the world would only recognize on February 26, when police finally entered the house and uncovered the full horror of what had taken place. To understand what happened in those 7 days, it is essential to consider Hackman's psychological and physical state. At 90 years old, he had mild Alzheimer's, a degenerative brain disease that affects memory and perception of reality. Studies on Alzheimer's suggest that patients can fall into a cognitive loop, where they continue repeating their daily routines without realizing changes in their surroundings. It is possible that Hackman woke up each day, walked around the house, spoke to Betsy, prepared meals, without ever realizing that she was no longer alive. This theory is supported by what police found when they entered the home: a glass of water still placed neatly on the table, an open book on the sofa, and evidence that Hackman had been going about his daily life as usual. Most disturbingly, Betsy's bed remained undisturbed, the blanket still carefully pulled over her body. This raised a chilling question: did Hackman know his wife had died, or did he believe she was still asleep? People with early-stage Alzheimer's often maintain habitual behaviors without being fully aware of them. They might continue setting the table, pouring drinks, or even speaking to a deceased loved one, unable to process the reality of their passing. If this theory is correct, Hackman may have spent an entire week beside Betsy, truly believing that she was still alive. His failure to seek outside help may not have been because he didn't want to, but because, in his mind, there was nothing wrong. However, Alzheimer's does more than just impair memory, it can also trigger hallucinations. Many patients in the later stages of the disease see or hear things that are not real. Some believe that their deceased loved ones are still speaking to them, even after they have passed. This suggests a far more disturbing possibility: what if Hackman didn't just forget reality, but truly believed that Betsy was still there, still speaking to him, still a part of his daily life? If this were the case, it would explain why he never called for help, because, in the world his mind had constructed, nothing had changed. Yet, there is another, more heartbreaking, but perhaps more realistic scenario. Alzheimer's does not erase awareness overnight. There may have been brief moments of clarity, where Hackman realized that Betsy was gone. Perhaps he tried to wake her, reached out to touch her, only to find no response. At that moment, he may have experienced sheer panic and confusion. People suffering from cognitive decline often retreat into the past when they are unable to cope with reality. If Hackman did have a moment of realization, his reaction may have been to withdraw completely, to shield himself from a reality he could not bear to process. Unable to understand how to respond, he may have chosen to ignore it altogether, continuing his routine as if everything was still normal. When police finally entered the house on February 26, there were no signs of violence or struggle. Everything remained neatly in place, frozen in time. But it was the silence that was most terrifying. The house felt like a place trapped in time, as if nothing had changed for an entire week. Dust had begun to settle on some surfaces, indicating that no one had cleaned or engaged in normal activities in the days leading up to the discovery. One small but significant detail: Hackman's cane was found near the front door. This suggested that at some point during those 7 days, he may have attempted to leave, but for some reason, he didn't. Did he have a fleeting moment of realization and try to seek help but lack the strength to continue? Or did Alzheimer's make him forget why he had even stood there in the first place? For more than 30 years together, Betsy was not just a wife, she was the only true companion Gene Hackman ever had. When she passed away, it was as if all life had drained from him. He had already been struggling with health issues, but after Betsy's death, his condition deteriorated faster than ever. The back-to-back losses of both their father and stepmother left Hackman's 3 children in an emotional void. They had barely begun to process the pain of losing Betsy when they were suddenly confronted with the death of their father. Elizabeth Hackman, through tears, said, "We hadn't even recovered from Betsy's passing, and now our father is gone too. In just a few months, we lost the 2 most important people in our lives." Fans of Gene Hackman around the world were equally shocked by the news. He was not only a Hollywood legend but also a man of deep character and integrity. Tributes flooded newspapers and social media, all echoing one undeniable truth: Gene Hackman was more than just a brilliant actor, he was a remarkable human being. But for the Hackman family, he was not just a cinematic icon. He was a father, a teacher of life's most valuable lessons, and a protector who shielded them from the glitz and harsh realities of Hollywood. Though he is no longer here, the values he instilled and the legacy he built will never fade. And in the end, that is what truly matters. 4. The mysterious legacy of Gene Hackman. The passing of Gene Hackman not only left a tremendous void in the hearts of his fans but also placed a great responsibility on his family's shoulders: how to preserve and honor the legacy he built throughout his life. Hackman was not just one of Hollywood's greatest actors, but a man of perseverance, dedication to his craft, and a deep commitment to authenticity and simplicity. His 3 children, Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie, faced the challenge of remembering their father in a way that aligned with his values, without turning his name into a commercialized brand or an unreachable Hollywood legend. Gene Hackman was always a private man, even at the height of his fame. He disliked the noise of Hollywood and never chased superficial glamour. Because of this, his family understood that the best way to honor him was not through extravagant tributes, but by continuing to spread the values he stood for. Christopher Hackman, his eldest son, emphasized that his father never considered fame to be the most important thing. What he valued most was dedication to his work, sincerity in acting, and the profound meaning behind each character he portrayed. With this in mind, the Hackman family decided to create meaningful initiatives that would allow future generations to understand Gene Hackman not just as an actor, but as a man of depth and integrity. One of the first initiatives launched by the Hackman family was the Hackman, a Legacy in Motion film exhibition, a special event designed to celebrate his life and career. This exhibition was more than just a collection of photographs or memorabilia, it was a journey through the defining moments of his career. Visitors could see original signed scripts, never-before-seen behind-the-scenes photographs, and rare video footage of his filmmaking process. Most notably, the exhibition recreated Hackman's workspace, where he once sat reading scripts, taking notes, and deeply reflecting on his roles. Leslie Hackman, his youngest daughter, shared that her father was not just an actor, he was a thinker, a man who constantly questioned the meaning of his craft. Through this exhibition, the Hackman family hoped to give audiences a glimpse into his work ethic and the values that shaped his performances. Rather than just remembering him through his films, the exhibition allowed fans to understand how he approached his roles, the level of dedication he put into each character, and the artistic philosophy that defined his career. Beyond the exhibition, the Hackman family also established the Gene Hackman Scholarship for young actors passionate about cinema. Hackman had always emphasized that success in acting did not come from raw talent alone, but rather from perseverance, hard work, and a genuine love for the craft. Because of this, the scholarship was designed not just to provide financial aid but also to offer mentorship opportunities for aspiring actors. Through this initiative, young talents facing financial hardship would receive support, allowing them to train under renowned directors, screenwriters, and actors who had worked with Hackman. The Hackman family believed that by helping the next generation of actors, they could ensure that his legacy would not just be remembered through past films, but also through the inspiration he could still provide to new artists. Christopher Hackman highlighted that helping young artists find their path in the industry was one of the most meaningful ways to carry on his father's legacy. Perhaps the most significant project in preserving Hackman's legacy was the production of a documentary about his life. Unlike traditional Hollywood documentaries that simply list achievements, the Hackman family wanted to tell a deeper, more personal story. This documentary was not meant to be just a highlight reel of his career, but rather a journey into the mind of Gene Hackman, his philosophy on acting, his perspective on fame, and the principles that guided his choices both on and off the screen. The film would include interviews with directors like Clint Eastwood and Martin Scorsese, as well as actors who had worked alongside him throughout his career. However, the most powerful aspect of the documentary would be the never-before-told stories from his own family. For the first time, his 3 children would share intimate details about their father's private life, the lessons he imparted, and who he really was outside of Hollywood. Leslie Hackman, who was directly involved in the documentary's production, explained that if her father were still alive, he would have disliked a film that glorified his achievements. But if it were an honest and heartfelt reflection of the man he truly was, then that was exactly what the Hackman family wanted to create. The Hackman family's efforts were not about turning him into a myth, but about preserving the truth of his life. Gene Hackman was never interested in being a celebrity, he was an artist, a thinker, and a man devoted to his craft. He lived his life with humility, never seeking the spotlight beyond his work, and remained true to himself until the very end. Now, his family had taken on the responsibility of ensuring that his story was told the way he would have wanted, not as an untouchable Hollywood legend, but as a man who believed in hard work, honesty, and the power of storytelling. Even though Gene Hackman is no longer with us, his legacy will not fade. It will live on through the films he left behind, the values he upheld, the young artists he continues to inspire, and the memories his family holds close to their hearts. And in the end, that is the greatest legacy any man can leave behind. 5. The media storm and the shocking truth about Gene Hackman. As soon as the news of Gene Hackman's passing was made public, a flood of sensational headlines emerged across various media outlets. Some tabloids speculated that Hackman had died alone and in poor health, claiming that his family had neglected him in his final years. However, the truth was far from that narrative. Hackman had spent his last days surrounded by his loved ones. But for many media outlets, the truth didn't matter as much as crafting headlines that would attract attention. Another widely spread rumor was about an alleged inheritance dispute between Hackman's 3 children. Some tabloids falsely reported that Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie were at odds over how to divide their father's estate, even implying that they couldn't agree on how to arrange his funeral. In reality, the Hackman family had already decided early on that his funeral would be a private affair, attended only by close friends and family, because that was what Hackman had wanted. But again, the tabloids weren't interested in facts, they were only looking for scandals that would sell stories. These sensationalized rumors added another layer of difficulty for the Hackman family. Already grieving the loss of both Gene and Betsy in such a short span of time, they now had to deal with relentless media pressure. Reporters hounded Hackman's acquaintances, desperately searching for anything that could be twisted into a scandalous story. This created an exhausting and frustrating situation for the family, forcing them to decide how to respond to the media storm. Each of Hackman's children chose a different way to deal with the situation. Christopher Hackman, the eldest son, chose silence. He understood that any response from the family could be misrepresented, manipulated, or used against them. Instead of engaging in a public back and forth with the media, Christopher decided that the best way to protect the family was to say nothing at all, refusing to fuel the media frenzy with unnecessary attention. Elizabeth Hackman, on the other hand, completely distanced herself from the public eye. She avoided social media, cut off communication with some of her entertainment industry acquaintances, and chose to ignore the chaos altogether. She believed that no matter how much she tried to correct the false narratives, the public would always be drawn to controversy over the truth. For her, the best way to defend her father's legacy was to let time expose the lies. Leslie Hackman, the youngest daughter, took the opposite approach. She refused to let false rumors spread unchecked and chose to speak out. In a rare interview with a trusted news outlet, Leslie set the record straight, stating unequivocally that there was no family dispute over inheritance and that her father had spent his last days in peace, surrounded by family. "My father never cared about money or material possessions. He lived simply, and so do we. There was no fight over his estate, and it's heartbreaking to see people fabricate these stories just to gain attention." Leslie's bold statement helped quash some of the baseless rumors. She also emphasized that the Hackman family would not allow false reports to tarnish their father's legacy. However, she also acknowledged a harsh truth: no matter how many times the family corrected the record, some people would still choose to believe the sensationalized version over reality. "I know that no matter what I say, some people will always prefer the negative stories over the truth. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we know who my father was, and so do those who truly loved him." Despite their different approaches, all three children shared one common goal: to protect their father's legacy with honesty and integrity. None of them wanted Hackman to become a commercialized Hollywood myth, nor did they want his life and passing to be exploited for tabloid headlines. Instead, they wanted the world to remember him as a dedicated artist, a humble man, and a loving father. Eventually, as the media frenzy settled, the truth about Gene Hackman's final years became clear. The sensationalized stories of family disputes disappeared, and the public came to understand that Hackman had passed away peacefully, exactly as his family had said. Looking back on the difficult period, the Hackman family felt relieved that they had handled the situation with dignity. They didn't need flashy headlines or public sympathy, they only wanted people to remember Hackman for the man he truly was. "We don't need glowing tributes or exaggerated stories about our father," Leslie Hackman said. "We just want people to remember him as a dedicated artist, a wonderful father, and a man with a sincere heart." By standing firm, avoiding unnecessary confrontation, and focusing only on what truly mattered, the Hackman family proved that sometimes, the best way to handle public scrutiny is to let the truth speak for itself. And in the end, the truth about Gene Hackman, a man of talent, humility, and unwavering dedication to his craft, will live on forever. The story of Gene Hackman is not just the story of a legendary actor, it is the story of a father, a husband, and a man with a warm heart. He dedicated his life to bringing unforgettable characters to the screen, but more importantly, he left behind lessons about life, patience, respect for his craft, and devotion to his family. Though both he and Betsy have passed, their love, their journey, and their legacy continue to inspire those who knew and admired them. The Hackman family will carry forward this journey, not just as the children of a legend, but as guardians of the values their parents instilled in them. Because, in the end, no matter how much time passes, no matter how the stage lights fade, true stories endure. And Gene Hackman, though no longer on screen, will forever remain in the hearts of those who cherished him, not just as an icon of cinema, but as a symbol of timeless human values. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss our next content.